Ladies, let me ask you something powerful today. What happens when you stop chasing, stop convincing, and start choosing yourself? The truth is, many women are giving everything, time, energy, emotion, to someone who hasn't even decided if he wants to commit. But today, I want to empower you with a truth that changes the game. Disappear like this, and he'll beg to marry you. Now, I'm not talking about playing games. I'm talking about rediscovering your value. I'm talking about disappearing from toxic cycles, from breadcrumb relationships, from waiting around for someone to see your worth. Disappearing isn't about ghosting, manipulation, or trying to punish someone. It's about recognizing when your presence is being taken for granted and having the courage to remove it. Sometimes we give so much of ourselves, our time, our love, our patience, that we begin to forget what we deserve in return. We stay in relationships or situations that drain us all because we're afraid that walking away might mean losing someone. But here's the truth. Staying in a space where your value isn't seen doesn't preserve the relationship. It slowly erodes your self-worth. When you disappear, you're not abandoning anyone. You're returning to yourself. You're saying, I matter too. You're cutting the energetic cord that keeps you tied to cycles of emotional scarcity. You're creating distance, not to manipulate, but to heal, to recalibrate, to refocus your energy on someone who's been neglected far too long. Power begins to return when you stop proving yourself to someone who's undecided. It's a quiet, radiant power, the kind that doesn't need validation, attention, or a reply. The act of disappearing is sacred. It's you choosing silence over begging, peace over chaos, self-respect over temporary affection. And in that absence, something amazing begins to happen. You see things clearly. You notice what was missing, what you were compromising on, what you were tolerating in the name of love. The fog lifts, and in the space you create, you find your voice, your standards, and your worth rising like a phoenix from the ashes of emotional dependence. Disappearing isn't about making them chase you. It's about reminding yourself that you don't need to chase anyone at all. It's not rejection. It's redirection. It's reclaiming your energy from a situation that no longer serves your soul. When you finally stop showing up for someone who stops showing up for you, the balance shifts not just in the relationship, but inside of you. You start standing taller, thinking clearer, loving harder, but this time starting with yourself. And that power, it's magnetic, irresistible, transformational, because nothing is more attractive than someone who knows they are the prize, even when they have to walk away to remember it. There's a moment in every woman's life when she realizes that chasing love, approval, or validation leads to nothing but exhaustion. We've been conditioned, sometimes subtly, sometimes forcefully, to believe that if we give more, try harder, stay longer, love deeper, then maybe, just maybe, we'll finally be chosen. But the truth is, chasing someone who is unsure about you is the fastest way to lose yourself. Stop chasing. Start choosing. When you chase, you place your power in someone else's hands. You make their affection the prize. You start to view yourself through their lens. Am I good enough for him? What more can I do to make him stay? Why isn't he calling, texting, committing? Every unanswered message becomes a message about your worth. But it isn't. It never was. Choosing is a different frequency. It's rooted in self-respect. When you choose instead of chase, you begin asking different questions. Is he good enough for me? Does this relationship nurture me or drain me? Is his energy matching mine, or am I carrying the emotional weight alone? Choosing means you are no longer trying to fit into a mold to be loved. You are not auditioning for a role in someone else's life. You are not shaping yourself to match his preferences. lifestyle, or timing. Instead, you are standing in your fullness, your personality, your standards, your boundaries, and saying, "This is who I am, and I will no longer shrink to be seen." It's a radical shift, one that takes courage, because when you stop chasing, you might lose someone. But what you gain is far greater self-trust, emotional freedom, and the clarity to see who is truly worthy of your heart. The energy you used to spend analyzing his behavior, worrying about his intentions, waiting for him to figure it out. You redirect that energy back to your own life, your goals, your passions, your peace. And suddenly, you're not craving attention. You're radiating confidence. You're not begging to be chosen. You're making conscious choices. You're not filling empty spaces with someone who gives you crumbs. You're building a life that feeds your soul. And in that energy, in that unapologetic self-possession, you no longer fear being alone because you finally feel whole. The chase ends the moment you remember you were never meant to run after love. You were meant to walk in it, with someone who walks beside you, not ahead of you, not behind you, and definitely not running away from you. In relationships, we often think about time, gifts, words, or affection as the main expressions of love. But there's something far more valuable that we give away every single day, often without realizing it's worth our energy. Your energy is your currency. It is the most intimate, powerful, and non-refundable thing you offer another person. It's in your thoughts, your emotions, your presence, your silence, your attention. Every time you overextend yourself for someone who isn't reciprocating, you're making a withdrawal from your emotional bank account. And if you're not careful, you end up in spiritual debt. Think about it. Every time you replay a text that wasn't sent, every time you sit by your phone waiting for a call, every time you obsess over someone else's indecision, you're spending your energy. Not just your time, but your life force. The same energy you could have spent building your dreams, nurturing your soul, or connecting with people who pour back into you. When you begin to see your energy as sacred, you stop giving it away so freely. You start asking, "Sees this exchange balanced?" You begin to protect your peace like you protect your home, because not everyone deserves access to the most intimate parts of you. And you learn that some people are emotional debt collectors. They come into your life to withdraw, not deposit. They take your attention, your love, your loyalty, but offer confusion, inconsistency, and silence in return. And here's the thing, just because someone isn't physically hurting you doesn't mean they're not draining you. Emotional depletion can be silent, subtle. It comes in the form of always being the one to initiate, to fix, to care more. It creeps in when you feel anxious instead of peaceful around someone, when you're constantly wondering where you stand, when your needs are always second to their convenience. But once you realize that energy is your most valuable currency, everything changes. You stop investing in half-hearted love. You stop overgiving to people who don't know how to receive. You stop allowing your spirit to be collateral for someone else's comfort. You become intentional about where you spend yourself. And just like money, when you spend wisely, when you invest in mutuality, in respect, in truth, you begin to see growth. You start feeling full again, abundant, aligned, because you are no longer leaking your energy in places that can't hold it. You realize that a woman who knows the worth of her energy is a woman who cannot be bought with breadcrumbs. She knows her value, and she refuses to pour oceans into people who wouldn't give her a glass of water. Her energy is no longer up for sale. It's earned, not entitled. And once she protects it, she begins to rise, not in arrogance, but in self-honoring truth. Sometimes the loudest statement you'll ever make is the one you make by saying nothing at all. In a world addicted to noise, reaction, and explanation, silence has become rare, and that rarity makes it powerful. When you choose silence over arguments, distance over desperation, and peace over performance, you send a message that can't be misunderstood. There's a unique kind of strength in a woman who no longer tries to prove her worth with words. She no longer feels the need to explain what she brings to the table. She stops fighting to be heard by someone who chooses not to listen. Instead, she simply retreats with dignity, with calm, and with the quiet confidence that her value does not diminish because someone failed to recognize it. When you stop texting first, when you stop responding to half-hearted gestures, when you stop justifying your needs, your silence becomes a mirror. It reflects the imbalance back to the other person. It forces them to face their behavior, their absence, their inconsistency. And if they truly care, that silence is deafening. It echoes in their thoughts. It lingers in their memories. It speaks a truth they can't unhear. You see, people grow accustomed to your availability. They get used to your responses, your check-ins, your emotional labor. They start to believe that no matter how little they give, you'll always be there. But when you stop filling the space, when your energy is no longer the constant comfort they've come to rely on without reciprocating, they feel it, even if they don't admit it. Silence disrupts the pattern. It interrupts the dynamic. It creates a void, and that void makes one thing crystal clear. You are not required to stay where you are not valued. You do not have to beg, chase, or over-explain yourself to be understood. Silence becomes your boundary. It becomes your shield. It becomes the voice of your self-respect when words no longer serve you. There's also healing in silence, not just for the other person, but for you. It's in the quiet moments that you begin to hear your own voice again. You hear your intuition, your truth, your inner wisdom, the voice that was drowned out while you were constantly trying to be heard by someone else. In silence, you begin to reconnect with your own needs and recognize how much you were giving away just to maintain a connection that may not have been serving you. Silence doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care about yourself enough to stop arguing for a place in someone's life. It means your peace matters more than their confusion. It means you are no longer available for relationships that require you to abandon your voice just to be loved. There's a transformation that happens in silence, in solitude, in stepping away from what no longer nourishes your soul. It's often mistaken for being cold, distant, or acting different. But in truth, it's the most beautiful kind of evolution. It's what happens when you remove yourself from someone's life, not to punish them, but to find yourself again. That's when the glow up begins. The glow up in your absence is not just about looking better, though that's part of it. It's deeper. It's internal. It's the soft rebirth that happens when you finally put the energy you used to pour into someone else back into yourself. It's spiritual. It's emotional. It's energetic. It's reclaiming every piece of you that was lost in the waiting, the hoping, the compromising. When you step away from a relationship or dynamic that kept you feeling small, confused, or unseen, your nervous system finally has room to relax. You start to sleep better. You think clearer. Your smile returns not as a performance, but as a reflection of peace. Your days become lighter, not because life is perfect, but because you're no longer carrying the heavy weight of someone else's indecision or emotional unavailability. You begin to dress for yourself again. You speak kinder words to the woman in the mirror. You move with more purpose. You pick up hobbies that had gathered dust, reconnect with dreams you had put on the shelf, and dive into the things that make your soul come alive. You spend less time explaining yourself and more time expanding yourself. The glow up also comes with a newfound discernment. You see red flags faster. You set boundaries without guilt. You're no longer seduced by inconsistency, by half-truths, by potential. Your standards rise not out of bitterness, but because you've tasted your own power, and you refuse to settle for anything that doesn't align with the peace you work so hard to cultivate. People will notice. Some will be inspired. Some will be intimidated. And yes, some, especially the ones who didn't value you before, will start reaching out again. They'll feel your absence not just physically, but spiritually. They'll sense the shift in your energy and suddenly remember what they once overlooked. But what they don't always realize is that the woman who left isn't the same woman they once had access to. That's the magic of a true glow up. It's not revenge, it's rebirth. It's not about making them miss you. It's about no longer missing yourself. When you glow up in your absence, you stop wondering if you're enough. You start knowing it. You no longer chase closure or clarity from someone else. You become your own resolution, your own peace, your own light. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing. No final message, no dramatic goodbye, no begging for understanding, just silence, space, and distance. Because there are people who will never fully realize what they had until it's gone. And when you finally walk away, when you stop reaching out, stop explaining, stop making excuses for his behavior, that's when the reality of your absence starts to settle in. Let him feel the loss. It's tempting to want to leave with closure, with clarity, I hope you understand what you're losing. But sometimes words don't teach. Experience does. When someone has been casually holding your heart in their hands without appreciating its weight, they need to feel what it's like when that warmth is no longer there. When the check-ins stop, when the energy fades, when the emotional safety net you always provided is suddenly missing. Don't rush back to soften the blow. Don't show up to remind him of your presence. Let the silence speak for itself. Let him sit with the space where your energy used to be. Let him wake up one morning and realize his world feels emptier, and that it's not just you he misses, it's how he felt when he had access to you. Your laughter, your softness, your loyalty, your ability to make chaos feel calm. Those things don't come around often. Let him feel what it's like to live without it. When you're always available, always forgiving, always explaining, you become easy to take for granted, predictable, expected. And unfortunately, the more you cushion someone from the consequences of their emotional neglect, the more they assume you'll always be there. But when you pull back, not in spite, but in self-respect, you shatter that illusion. You remind him through your absence that love is not an entitlement, it's a privilege. And it can be lost. Let him feel the ache of what he didn't nurture. Let him sit in the discomfort of missed chances and mishandled moments. Let him wonder what you're doing now, who you're laughing with, what kind of peace you've found without him. Because trust this, when you were genuine, loyal, and present, and he didn't rise to meet you, that loss is going to echo long after your goodbye. This isn't about playing games. This is about allowing natural consequences to unfold. It's about finally letting someone experience what they've been blind to all along, your absence as a mirror of how deeply your presence mattered. And sometimes that is what breaks through, not tears, not one last heart to heart, just your complete, unapologetic withdrawal from a dynamic that was slowly dimming your light. And when he finally does realize what he lost, whether that's in a week, a month, or a year, it won't be because you reminded him. It'll be because he felt the shift, the void, the silence, the undeniable truth that you were never just another girl. You were the rare kind of woman who gave fully, loved deeply, and meant every word. And now you're gone. There's something undeniable about a woman who rises, not in spite of heartbreak, but because of it. A woman who was once questioned, underestimated, or treated as temporary, and then chooses to evolve into her highest self, not to prove anything, but to reclaim everything. That's the kind of transformation that turns heads, shifts dynamics, and leaves a lasting impression. It's powerful. It's poetic. And it's often the very thing he never saw coming, you see. When someone is used to you being soft, available, and endlessly forgiving, they start to assume you'll always stay that way, that your love is permanent, that your boundaries are flexible, that no matter how poorly they show up, you'll keep showing up better. So they grow careless, lazy, entitled. They stop putting in effort, stop communicating with clarity, stop choosing you with intention, because they believe you'll never change. But then you do. You stop waiting for him to see your worth and start living like you finally see it yourself. You stop accepting crumbs and start demanding consistency, respect, and depth. You stop trying to be the woman he wanted you to be and start becoming the woman you were always meant to be. The one who moves with confidence, who makes bold decisions, who walks away from uncertainty and never looks back. You level up in every way, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, even physically. Not because you're trying to make him regret losing you, but because you're finally prioritizing the relationship you have with yourself. You begin to dress for the woman in the mirror, not for his attention. You speak with conviction, not apology. You stop over-explaining your standards and start enforcing them with quiet strength. You become the kind of woman he thought you'd never become. Because deep down, he didn't believe you had it in you. He mistook your love for weakness, your softness for passivity, your loyalty for fear. But he was wrong. You weren't weak. You were patient. You weren't passive. You were hopeful. You weren't afraid. You were committed. But now you're clear, and that clarity becomes radiant. It transforms the way you walk into a room, the way you carry yourself, the way you demand more without ever having to raise your voice. You no longer settle for surface-level connection. You no longer beg to be chosen. You no longer seek validation from someone who couldn't recognize the gem you are when they had the chance. The woman you become in the aftermath of disappointment is unstoppable. She doesn't shrink to make anyone comfortable. She doesn't tolerate emotional laziness or perform for breadcrumbs of affection. She no longer tries to prove her worth because she embodies it every single day. And that version of you, the evolved, elevated, unapologetically whole version, she's unforgettable, not just to the world, but especially to the man who thought he could lose you without consequence. There's something profoundly graceful and deeply disarming about a woman who moves on in silence. No lengthy goodbye, no dramatic exit, no watch me glow up speech. She just stops showing up where her soul was starving. She stops waiting for text, stops rereading old conversations, stops holding on to what could be. She simply lets go, not to make a scene, not to spark a reaction, but because she's finally done holding on to potential. She's done being tethered to confusion. She's done overwatering a relationship that never grew. And that quiet, unspoken departure, it says more than any message ever could, because the truth is, real moving on doesn't require an audience. It doesn't need validation or social media posts or cryptic quotes. It happens internally, subtly, like the seasons shifting. One day, she wakes up and her heart doesn't ache the same way. The silence doesn't hurt anymore. The questions don't echo as loudly. Her peace has returned, and with it, her power. She begins to pour her energy into her own life again, genuinely, not performatively. She isn't pretending to be over him. She is. And she doesn't need to prove it to anyone, especially not him. The absence of drama is not weakness. It's strength. It's her choosing growth over games, dignity over desperation, peace over performance. And this is what stings the most for the one who let her go. She moved on without making noise. There's no angry outburst, no begging to be seen, no final cry for closure. Just quiet distance, just calm detachment. Just a woman who realized she deserved more and didn't need to be convinced to stay where she was undervalued. She no longer circles back. She doesn't check his profile. She doesn't compare herself to the next girl. She doesn't linger in old memories or try to rewrite the past. She accepts it for what it was, and she walks forward, not because she's trying to forget, but because she's choosing herself this time. This kind of moving on, without announcements, without performance, without needing to be understood, is the kind that shakes people to their core, especially the ones who never thought she'd actually leave. The ones who assumed she'd always wait, always try, always be available. But she's gone now, and not just physically, energetically, emotionally, spiritually. And that kind of detachment is irreversible. It's the quiet kind of power that only comes from deep healing. The kind of power that turns, why did she leave, into, how did I ever let her go? So if you truly want to shift the dynamic, if you want to stop being an option and start being a woman who is undeniably unforgettable, don't argue. Don't chase. Don't beg. Disappear. Not to manipulate, not to play games, but to honor yourself. Because the moment you stop trying to convince someone to see your worth and instead embody it in your absence, everything changes. You become the echo in the room he can't forget, the standard he compares others to, the woman he lost but will never truly get over. He won't just miss your presence. He'll miss the peace you brought, the light you carried, and the love he never thought he'd lose. And by the time he realizes it, you won't be waiting, you'll be thriving, glowing, whole. And he'll beg to marry the woman he once thought he could live without. But by then, you'll know you were never meant to be begged for. You were meant to be chosen in your presence and in your absence.